the 10 people who used to do the task, you only need one person now.
Technology, at most, it will free up humans to do what they're best at.
A vlogger, a YouTuber, a content creator, and the parents will say, what sort of a job is that?
Accepting change and mastering the art of learning.
Why aren't we among the pioneers in such technologies and industries?
What they're studying is not in sync with what they should be expecting when they leave the job.
To have a robot do an open heart surgery on you.
So I'll be in safe robotic hands.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My dear brothers and sisters, welcome to Dome Podcast with me, Hatim Abdissalaam. And today I'm going to take you to the future. We're going to talk about a very important aspect of our life, which is artificial intelligence and the future jobs. And today I have an honorable guest, Dr. Amer Al Rawas, who is a professor at New Vision University in Georgia. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Amer.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah. I feel privileged to be interviewed by someone I admire so much.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you, Dr. Amer. Dr. Amer, if you allow me today, I'm going to take you through a roller coaster about future jobs. We understand the past 2 years were very difficult on all of us because of the pandemic. A lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of businesses closed down, and now we also hear that the future is going to be even more tougher as a lot of jobs are going to disappear from the market. Today, we want you to share some light on the aspect of artificial intelligence and future jobs, Dr. Amer. So where do we start, Dr. Amer?
I think we always start with history. History provides you, if you like, with the basis for change.
Yes.
And we seem to have short memories when we deal with change over what is called industrial revolutions. So if you recall from history that the first industrial revolution had a huge socioeconomic impact. So
Yes.
did the second and the third. You know, we started off by the first, where we moved into manufacturing through industrial equipment. Therefore, people who used to make things in the villages and then bring them to the towns to sell them are not any more able to do that, because in the cities now you have automated factories that were manufacturing at a more efficient, cost-effective, and volume-based manufacturing.
They used to be independent. Everybody
Absolutely.
did everything by their own.
Absolutely.
And now they are in the process of doing it collectively.
You got the message. The message is now we're going full circle back to being independent freelancers, the way I see it in the future.
Yes.
So what happened at the time, people had to move to the cities because they were not any long. It wasn't viable anymore for them to continue to produce at the low productivity, expensive process, and then take it to the cities to sell it, because the cities now have mechanized manufacturing that was manufacturing at better quality, better cost efficiency. So later, the second revolution actually accommodated all the people coming from the village, and then we had the urbanizations with the advent of the lifts, where you were able to build high-rise.
So at the beginning it was only on the horizon, and then they started going vertically.
Absolutely. And then you had concentration of populations that were competing for productivity in the cities.
That's why the big cities, they're always populated.
Absolutely. And what happened is a huge socioeconomic transformation happened.
Yes.
From being an individual producer, freelancer with nowadays terminology, producing at home, selling to the city, to an employee in a big factory, in a big city, producing and living. So that has not only economic implication, but also social implications.
Social implication. I noticed you used the word freelancer and you didn't use the word entrepreneurs.
Yeah, because there is a subtle difference between the two. An entrepreneur build builds an organization.
Yes.
It's a builder profile. So you build something that eventually hires other people and can grow to a conglomerate, like
a business,
like Apple, for example.
Yes.
Or Microsoft. A freelancer continues to sell his time, his skill, his resources for money. And it's a kind of a different...
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis. So it's like a task-oriented employment or assignment-oriented employment. Some authors like to call it assignment-based. So you have time and skill. You slice it, and maybe multiple skills,
yes,
to provide a service for those who need it. Now, we've gone like a full circle because after the third industrial revolution that brought in the internet, the connectivity, and the telephony and everything.
Globalization.
Absolutely. We moved now to the fourth industrial revolution.
Yes.
That's in one way, from a socioeconomic implication, is going to bring us back to the beginning, where people are working for their own under what is called the shared economy or the gig economy, yes, where you're basically lending your idle time and idle skill for someone else to use it for a price.
Not necessarily in the same geographical location.
Absolutely. And also that applies not only for the human resources, but for also other tangible resources. Like if I had a lawn mower that I will use once every 3 months as my grass grows.
So you lease it to someone else.
Absolutely. Any idle resource, be it human or non-human tangible asset, can be leased or rented for a price for somebody to deliver value out of it. So you create value through renting, or let's say deploying your skill and time to a job, and you work for yourself.
I think, Dr. Amer, in the past, after the Second World War, and then we started in the industry, and we had a reason for that, and now we're in the middle phase between the two. Between the leap to the future, artificial intelligence, and sticking to the past, which is the process of manufacturing and staying within the big industries. You realize that there are some nations that are progressing very fast,
yes,
and some nations are still stuck in the past. Where are we geographically in terms of these two, Dr. Amer, in the Middle East?
You see, there is a theory by Rogers that talks about diffusion theory or transformation theory, yes, as some refer to it, where it says that in any transformation, you go through stages in which different people come along.
Yes.
So you start with the pioneers, who are a small number of people who gain the most by taking the risk first to adapt the new knowledge or the new theory, the new technology, new culture.
The new norm.
The new norm, absolutely. Yes. And then they sell it to what is called the early adapters, the people who believe in it quickly, and those benefit the most after the pioneers. Pioneers benefit the most. After that, you have the people who are the late majority. So you have early...
The market.
The early majority benefits more, and then you have the late majority. I think we always belong in the late majority. But that's not the worst, because you can be one of the laggers who actually only adapt the new norm when they have no other choice. Yeah. So I think we in this part of the world often end up being the late majority, late adapters of change, and we tend to basically wait until we see that the early adapters benefited and it's proven to be beneficial for them, and then we go. But some will even wait until the end, according to Rogers, yes, and will only adapt when they have no other choice. Yeah. And this happened to many nations.
Is there a reason why we're always lagging at the back? Why aren't we among the pioneers in such technologies and industries?
For you to catch up, that's a very interesting question. For you to catch up, all pillars of the economic ecosystem have to cycle at the same kind of frequency. So if your technology adoption is cycling at a faster frequency than your regulatory adoption and adaptability of your regulations, then you're always going to be out of sync. So you will not be able to
introduce the new
technology because regulations are not keeping with pace. And I think that's happening in the region in many technologies, including essential technologies like renewables, for example, where we are rich with the sun, but yet we're rich with the sun and wind, yet we don't have maturity in the regulation.
Proper utilization of the solar system.
Absolutely. And you can basically measure that against so many other technologies and cultural norms, because I sometimes believe that a change in what is called social behavior can actually affect a stronger impact on societies than technology disruption. And the change in social behavior.
Can you elaborate on technology disruption?
See,
what do you mean by that?
Technology disruption is like take for instance what we are used to in terms of using for commuting taxis, cabs, and other paid for rides.
Yes.
And then you have a technology disruption by an app. And this app is, let's say, Uber or Careem or any Bolt or any of the other alternatives. These completely disturb the world of the transportation. They don't own the asset, which is the car, and they don't own the skill, which is the driver, yet they're providing you the service. Your loyalty is for them. So they've completely changed the formula. In the past, if you're a taxi driver, you're either working for yourself and you have a license to operate and we trust you because of the license and the color coding of your vehicle.
And maybe you inherited it from your parents.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And the second is you work for a commuting company or a public transport that we trust. Now we trust the app and the driver is employed by the app. So the app is the boss. But the true boss really
is... It's a strange world. Doctor.
Absolutely. And the true boss really is the client, the customer, because he's able to choose whether to select this car or this driver or not. Secondly, he's able to...
So it takes us back to the common phrase, which is customers always right.
Absolutely, yeah. Now the customer is in absolute power, and many companies, Sheikh Hatim, that are lagging behind in terms of empowering the customers are losing out. The likes of Uber are spoiling our customers. And if I am providing a service to you where I am dictating the terms and you're not able to rate me, and then you go out and be able to deal with Uber and you
rate them,
pick,
it's fast.
You pick what car and what driver, and then you are able to rate them. You're able to decide whether to tip them or not. You're able to report if there is any incident.
Very efficient.
Yeah, and that way you're spoiled. You have the whole power. I calculated it. It's actually 5 types of powers. When you are dealing with a lot of service institutions around the region, it's almost like a concessionary agreement. They decide what the service level is, the price, and then you have to accept it. So soon, all these so-called over-the-head over-the-top players will rule the world, and this will cause an economic situation where there's concentration of wealth. All the money is going to these big conglomerates.
Now I see the stance of the pioneers, the people you spoke about,
yes.
The ones they are taking the risk. Because to come up with these ideas, which are innovative and risky, but you're going ahead with the idea and implementing it, and people are happy with it, and they're accepting the change, then I think they are the pioneers, and well done to them.
And they benefit the most. I remember before we started, we talked about the legacy of المرحوم Sheikh Khalfan, Allah yarhamu. I remember I kind of had a conversation with him on the theory of change, the Rogers diffusion of change, which some people call transformation theory. And I told him, if you look at Risala al-Muhammadiyya, the Prophet's journey, it was a little bit like that. You start with the knowledge. The knowledge was given by God.
Yes.
And then you have the pioneers who were the people in Dar al-Arqam.
Yes.
What they did is they basically
believed in the idea.
Yes. And they reinforced each other's idea. None of them irtad, right? So they believed in the idea, and then they went to the
masses,
to the early adapters, which were al-Muhajirin, who then were persecuted and had to go. Yes. Then if you look at who benefited the most, I think
Al-Ansar, Medina.
The 10 Mubashirin bil Jannah are all from Al-Muhajirin, because they took the risk first, they adapted first, so they had the most to gain. And then Al-Ansar accepted it gracefully because they knew that it has already been established.
They saw the fruits.
Yes. So this, and then the late majority came, Fath Makkah.
Yes.
Because then it became a fact. And the laggards were the ones like Abu Lahab and the ones who didn't believe, even though it was clear that this was the truth.
The arrogant.
Yeah, and if you look at it, it's a similar model.
It's like when you have people now in 2022, and they say, "I'm just not comfortable to use smartphones. I don't have a phone." While the smartphone has become not only a communication tool, it's your office.
Absolutely.
It's your travel agent. It's your CC camera. It's everything.
It has basically concentrated the power in your palm.
Yes.
So within your hands, you have the power to select and choose things that were in the past imposed by others from outside.
Yes.
So it has, to some extent, from a socioeconomic point of view, has individualized the service, customized it to people. So people are finding it easy to pick and choose. So if we go back to the topic we intended to speak on, which is how jobs are going to be affected, more and more people will take a choice to work for themselves as freelancers in what's called the shared economy or the gig economy. In the gig economy, you have a skill and time.
Yes.
And you have customer service and customer connectivity and the ability to gain people and to build trust, and that's very important. If you have these, then you succeed. And if you don't produce, let's say you decide today you're going to have the day off, you make no money. That's why they describe it as produce or perish. Yeah, where if you were working as an employee, you can have a lazy day. You go to work and really don't do any.
And you get paid at the end of the day.
Yes. But you're paid for your collective monthly productivity. Hopefully somebody is calculating your productivity. But in the gig economy, a freelancer has to produce or they will perish.
They won't be able to survive.
Yeah. And they have to have the skills that the particular domain they operate in requires. So if you were a carpenter producing for people, you need to know carpentry very well, but you also need to know how to sell. You need to understand customer connectivity and customer service.
So previously someone did that on your behalf. Now you have to do everything by yourself.
Absolutely.
You have to be the carpenter, you have to have the Instagram account, you have to be a filmmaker and advertise and do everything by yourself.
It's a lonely world. In fact, they say one of the risks on the gig economy activists is that they can become lonely and can be stressed.
But if you look at it on the brighter side, Dr. Amer, it is utilizing the maximum potential of the human being.
Absolutely.
Being multitasked, being able to do more than one thing, because previously we were taught in school that you have to specialize in only one area. You have to only be good in one area. But in today's world, we find out, no. I can be a carpenter, can I be a filmmaker, I can do my own sales, I can, create content. So if I'm capable of doing all that, yes, I agree with you, I might be lonely. I don't have a team, I don't have suppliers, I don't have other industries that are working with me. But in the long run, it's good for us, I think.
I think it is good. I think it's good, and it's going to improve productivity per individual.
Yes.
Because when people are under pressure to produce or perish, they are going to produce. And they will also choose when to have time off. So I just learned from brother Hatim Al-Jahdami,
yes,
that this, people talk about work-life balance. He said, no, let's just talk about balanced life. And to have a balanced life, you have to be in control not only of your financial security, but also your time freedom. Not only financial freedom, people talk about financial freedom, and more importantly, we should be talking about time freedom.
Time and social freedom. Yeah.
So that, if you work as a freelancer, you can decide when to be off.
Yes.
And you can plan not to promise anybody jobs, not to accept any jobs. Let's say take the Uber driver, he's a freelancer.
Yes.
He can decide not to drive today and take his family out.
It's up to him.
Yes. But if you had a job,
you can't do that.
You can't do that. I mean,
Dr. Amer, if you allow me, we'll take a short break.
Sure.
And then we'll continue the discussion, and we'll deviate a little bit from our main topic, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Dear brothers and sisters, welcome back to Dome Podcast with our honorable guest, Dr. Amer bin Al Rawas. Welcome back, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
Doctor, I want to take you a little bit away from the main topic, and I want to talk about education. The reason why I want to talk about education is that our generation might retire soon, and they might not see the change that we're talking about. But the coming generation are a bit worried because what they are learning now might not be applicable with what they're going to face in the future. So sometimes you struggle even with your kids at home. They don't want to study, saying that, we want to have a job. But in reality, they have a better opportunity now of being themselves and being creative. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Dr. Amer?
Thank you. That's a valid concern. I mean, the gap between the disruption that's happening in technology, in the socioeconomic model, on the future of jobs, and what's being taught is getting bigger by the day. And young people are well connected, and they're aware of the change, and they can see that what they're studying is not in sync with what they should be expecting when they leave the job. Yes. But no country and no education system can keep up with the change. So we can't blame it on, because education systems by definition require a lot of let's say studying before research before their transformation, because
yes.
And they take a long time to transform, and then for the effect to happen, let's say at school you would need 12 years to effect a change.
Yes.
So they continuously live a cycle of rebuilding, and now it's like refurbishment and rebuilding from the beginning. Refurbishment and rebuilding, because they can't wait 12 years to build technology? A new generation. See, technology
is changing on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Technology is changing, but people at individual level have to be adaptable. We talk about different levels of intelligence. So you have the physical intelligence, the PQ.
Yes.
You have the IQ, the intellectual intelligence, and then you have the emotional intelligence, and then you have also the spiritual intelligence.
Yes.
Now there is a whole new criteria for selecting people, which is AQ, Adaptability, quotient.
That's a different than the artificial intelligence.
No, this is for adaptability, but you as a person are able to adapt individually and learn. See, the key to that is accepting change and mastering the art of learning. Mastering the art of learning on your own is going to be a key skill going forward.
Which has been provided, and I'm really pleased when the pandemic hit that all the most of the educational platforms were opened free for the public.
Absolutely.
And the people who took advantage of this and started learning online, learning skills, whether it's on YouTube or another educational platforms, they are the ones who had a step ahead and took advantage of it, while everybody else was just waiting for someone to tutor them.
See, the role of a teacher or a tutor in the past has been a source of knowledge. That has been transformed completely by technology because knowledge is available for anyone. Source of knowledge is not anymore the teacher, but the teacher remains a very important part for the educational system because he's now providing guidance, inspiration, and motivation to learn. So they provide you, if you like, an ecosystem for learning. We're used to go to the school, it's part of the ecosystem. The teacher is part of the learning ecosystem. The curriculum is part of the ecosystem. The pedagogical framework, how the curriculum is divided and delivered, is also part of the ecosystem. That whole ecosystem has been disrupted.
Administrating the whole process.
Absolutely. It was a well-structured ecosystem that was evolving over years, but suddenly it was disrupted by the pandemic and disrupted by the technological change and the advent of the fourth industrial revolution. Now, this disruption, all we have to do is not basically try and change our education system very quickly, to teach our kids how to accept change and learn to adapt, and then master the art of learning on their own without having the ecosystem. We talked earlier about how the freelancer has to survive in a lonely world where they have to market for themselves, they have to price a product for themselves, they have to connect with customers, they have to deliver the service, they have to bill for the service and collect the money for the service and continue to keep customers happy by innovating the level of service and so on. Now, in the learning, you will need to do the same thing. You will need to know what are you searching for, what are you trying to learn, what's the purpose of learning. That was all provided for you by the educational ecosystem that has now been disrupted. You need to decide for yourself. So we need to empower kids to be able to decide for themselves what to learn, how to learn it, and how frequently they have to unlearn that and learn something new.
Let me ask you a technical question, Dr. Amer. Previously, we used to learn because we have an idea of the job or the profession that we're going or we want to take. So the skills and the knowledge that we're gaining is for that particular job that we want to take. Now, with the advancement of technology, we actually, I would say that the majority of the people don't know about the future jobs. So how can they prepare themselves for these type of jobs, especially the ones that have to do with data analysis? There's so much areas which will be needed in the future in terms of data analytical reviews and so on. How can students now prepare themselves for the future while they don't know what is the future?
See, Sheikh Hatim, you've touched on a very fundamental question which has been talked about a lot, especially in Oman, which is this dilemma of mapping educational outcome to market requirements, job market requirements.
Yes.
This has been a dilemma in Arabic, المواءمة بين المخرجات والسوق العمل.
No.
And I think that's been disrupted completely. You can't anymore do that kind of mapping of curriculum or disciplines or degrees to jobs in the future.
Yes.
Not only because the jobs are forever changing, but the gap between the change, the frequency of change is so short that there's no way the custodians of the education system will be able to adapt curriculum, nor will the parents and their kids will be able to predict and make the changes in their learning journey to match or map their kids or themselves for these future jobs. So the trick, in my opinion, is to have what I refer to as learning agility. The difference between learning and learning agility is, I was asked this question in an interview in Kuwait. The difference is fundamentally that learning is the ability to learn and demonstrate that you've learned through taking some test or an exam and proof that you've learned what you've learned. Learning agility, in my opinion, means that you have always the willingness to learn and unlearn and adapt what you learn. So you learn something new, you adapt it, and then you learn something newer, and you unlearn the old thing that you knew and use the new learning. This agility of adapting new skill and embracing it and starting to using it at the same time knowing that you are going to unlearn it very soon is the learning agility. Learning just for certification or passing the exam is not going to cut it in the future.
And I think our generation, Doctor, we had that ability of adapting. I give you an example. I used to work in the finance department for 15 years, and we used to do the ledgers, handwritten ledgers. And then Oracle introduced softwares. With a click of a button, everything is done. We were able to cope with the changes, which made our life much, much easier, and we had time for other important tasks to do. And I think also now, this generation will be able to adapt to these changes. But there is a gap between not only the education, also the parents with the children. So if you ask a kid now, what would you like to be? He would say a vlogger, a YouTuber, a content creator. And the parents will say, what sort of a job is that? How can you make money that? What would people say about you?
Notice all the ones you mentioned are freelancers.
Yes.
All those titles are freelancing, working for them own. You see, human don't like to be controlled. Human are free agents.
Yes.
Yeah, and this whole gig economy, shared economy concept allows them to be free to do what they like and what they can produce. Yes. But anyway, in your earlier interjection, you pointed to how does this disruption affect us? And you talked about freeing you when you moved from doing accounts manually to using an ERP, that it freed up your time to do other things.
Yes.
So I think the fourth industrial revolution with the AI and robotics will even exaggerate that to the extent that people's time will be freed up from all physical and intellectual activities. It's difficult to free them from the emotional and innovative activities, but from the fundamental intellectual and physical activities, physical through robotics, intellectual through AI, but will free them to do things that humans are better at, which is connecting, inspiring, innovating, creating. That is something that robotics and AI cannot do, at least not now. And that's why the jobs that you mentioned were all on this domain. It's in the creation, the innovation. They're all things to do with what humans are best at. So technology, at most, it will free up humans to do what they're best at.
Yeah.
I see the positive in that.
I love the positive side of it. Now let me trap you a little bit on the aspect of people. Yes, it made our life, ERP made our life much easier. It gave us more time, extra time to do other important tasks, but it also meant that the 10 people who used to do the task, you only need one person now. So it means cutting down on human. And a lot of people are seeing that coming soon. especially when it comes to process-oriented jobs that has a certain pattern where a robot can imitate those tasks without the human intervention. And I want you to take us through the cycle of how that change where automation is going to replace the repetitive processes, and what will humans do while the robotics will
you see, this is
it's a very long
argument.
question.
No, but it's an interesting argument. I think all technology disruption has done in the past has been to improve the lives of humans,
yes,
and create new opportunities. There will be people who are, let's say, at the bleeding edge, who get hit by the technology disruption,
yes,
and are not able to adapt quickly. And there will be people who are at the leading edge, will embrace the technology quickly and will be able to move forward with it. Take, for example, from history, when the mechanical car was invented, people thought, what are we going to do with all these people who are looking after the horses, and all the people who are giving the food to the horses, selling the feed, and sweeping the streets after the horses have walked.
And the carpenters who are making the carts.
Absolutely. And then they found out that these people got better jobs. They're now car mechanics, they're car drivers, there are spare parts manufacturers, because these cars eventually have wear and tear, they have accidents, and they require, but they created better jobs. So instead of sweeping the streets, after the horses, they're now basically cleaning cars,
yes,
or painting cars, or replacing parts of cars, or manufacturing parts for cars, or driving cars, and they created a whole new set of jobs. But the intensity of change with the fourth industrial revolution, you will find that there will be redundancy, the one redundancy that you talked about. And that is now calling for a shorter week. In my last lecture about this in a conference, I talked about England talking about it, the Labour Party talking about a 4-day week.
The same the one that is implemented now in neighboring country?
In Sharjah.
Yes.
It was implemented in the specific emirate of Sharjah, 4
yes,
days only.
Yes.
And it's interesting that Sharjah, without the long study and debate in parliament, were able to decide faster than many countries.
In a day.
In a day.
In a day.
Maybe they had studied it internally, but we heard the announcement in a day. Europe has been talking about this for a while. You see, the way to compensate is to create what is called the leisure society. So there's more time for us to have what Brother Hussam was calling balanced life.
Quality time.
Balanced life, quality time.
Yes.
And we're not here to excuse the word, slave our day, working and then coming home tired to
modern day slavery,
to sleep and slave again the next day for a living. Yes. So therefore, in the past, industrial revolutions and technology disruptions have reduced the repetitive jobs, the routine, boring jobs, and gave us more, let's say, aspiring jobs. But now the change is so big and so disruptive that some will have to be redundant. So the solution is to shorten the number of hours per day or the number of days per week, and then you create what is called a leisure society, where other people work to serve us in coffee shops, in restaurants, and that's a different kind of job. That because now we have a 4-day week, we will have more days to go out and eat out and spend, and that's what's called the leisure society. So you move into what is called lifestyle products and services, and then we're creating new jobs in lifestyle projects and services. So in the end, humans have survived throughout the years, and other species didn't, because humans are able to adapt. So it's all about AQ, adaptability quotient.
Okay. Dr. Amer, if you allow me, we'll take another short break and then continue our discussion after that, inshallah.
Thank you, sure.
Dear brothers and sisters, welcome back to Dome Podcast with my honorable guest, Dr. Amer bin Awad Rawas. Welcome back, Doctor.
Thank you, Sheikh Hatim.
Now we have another very important point, Dr. Amer, is that there is a segment of people that they are very worried and concerned about the future jobs, especially the jobs that have to do with technology, which will replace human capabilities. So they isolate themselves in areas that need emotional intelligence, social intelligence, close human interaction, despite maybe those areas are not suitable for them. So what can we advise the public, Dr. Amer?
I think it's very important for one to learn about their own strengths and inclinations. I actually recommend for young people who are trying to decide what to do a book called Strength Finder 2.0 by Don Clifton. This book helps you work on your strengths so that instead of focusing on filling the gaps in your weaknesses, you focus on deploying your strengths. And I believe if you find that these longer lasting kind of future jobs that include the element of emotional intelligence, social intelligence, human interaction, and creativity, innovation, those are, if you like, more sustainable jobs. If you find that your strengths are not mapped to those specifically, then you need to also find where your strength is and work, because all those systems, the robots, the AI engines, the learning machines, and all those automated systems will require someone to build them, someone to maintain them, someone to sell them, and someone to deploy them, commission them.
Yes.
All those services will have to be provided by people who are either engineers or in the fundamental science areas, including computer science.
Developers.
And absolutely.
Yeah.
So therefore, both worlds are going to grow simultaneously. There are people who will build machines to provide the routine, repetitive
Services.
jobs and jobs that are susceptible to automation, and those who will continue to be providing human interaction with services that can only be provided by human. Those who will cover the creative part, the innovation, will continue to thrive. The choice must be made based on strengths and inclinations, not on market dynamics.
Now, Dr. Amer, give us some examples of the future jobs. We want you to tell us first some of the common jobs that might disappear in the near future, and some of the future jobs that people are looking up to, and they have to prepare themselves for these jobs.
I think the jobs that will go are any repetitive job and intermediary jobs, like people who are in the middle. I always use in my lectures the example of buying a car.
Yes.
When you buy a car, you have a salesperson, and then you have the finance guy who helps you finance the car, and so on. All those intermediary jobs will go. Intermediary jobs will all go, and then because you're now going to be dealing with the car directly, there's an intelligent car, people who book things for you, people who get things on your behalf, do things on your behalf, all gone. It will be individualist. You will do everything on your own. You'll be talking to a machine. So anything that is in between a human and machine is at risk of disappearing within the next 10 years. On the other hand, anything that is to do with data science, which is something I recommend very strongly for people to do, because you could provide data science services across the globe from Oman or from
Can you elaborate more? What is data science?
Data science is, as you know, we moved from data, which was facts and figures,
Yes.
to information, which is essentially useful data. We basically build graphs from that data. It becomes information which we can use. Useful data is information. We're moved now to the next level,
Knowledge.
which is knowledge. And knowledge is information plus experience. You
Okay.
add to it the element of experience. Data scientists basically take this data, plug with it the experience, and find other data. You have structured data that comes. Right now, the data we get.
Is it how the algorithms work?
No, the algorithms, you build them to basically process the data that you have in a way that gives you a prediction.
Yes.
But those algorithms are adapted. They are learning machines.
Okay.
So the idea is that you have the structured data from the third industrial revolution. You have what is called structured data that comes from systems.
Yes.
Or system data, some people call them. You also incorporate with them unstructured data, meaning information that you get through surveys, interviews, or other sources like open sources, and experience. You plug those in as a data scientist in a way that gives you the essence of the experience and helps you make a decision or a prediction.
And now, there was an argument recently about privacy, where a lot of these social media platforms, they gather a lot of data
Absolutely.
to use them in the process that you have mentioned. Isn't it something that we should worry that with the development, with the changes, with the advancement that will help us, but at the same time, something is missing, like human privacy?
See, when you go to your doctor or to your lawyer, your banker, you tell them a lot of private information.
Yes.
What is the purpose? The purpose is for them to serve you better.
Yes.
And if you start thinking of course I'm biased, but if you start thinking of technology companies that continue to snoop on your information, collect it and process it in order to serve you better, then you will be fine with it.
Yes.
But if you think, why should they know this? And what's in it for me? And you wonder too much about what's in it for me and what they can do against me, that's when you are worried. I'm one of those who think the same way when I tell my doctor all my secrets, my lawyer, if I had any, I don't have, but a banker, for them to help me serve me better,
But
I would volunteer my data to these agencies.
will it be different? Will it be looked at in a different way when that data is sold for someone else to benefit and there is monetary gain behind it?
No, of course, you think, I
Then
should...
it becomes
I should
financial.
You see, you will be either thinking I should have my cut on it,
Yes,
or you think
yes.
I'm going to get my delayed reward when whoever bought the information
Yes.
will be able to deliver to me something that will probably serve me better. So, it's not right for information to be abused
Yes.
outside the privacy limits, but as long as you're aware, I wouldn't want anyone to be unwillingly volunteering information.
Yes.
I think the word volunteering is wrong when it's unwillingly. For people to basically unwillingly grab your information and use it and sell it is a different scenario from you volunteering willingly
Yes.
your information so that you can be served better by some vendor in the
Yes.
future. I kind of belong more to this because I'm in this business, the data business. But I know that there is a huge public cry in civil societies that are more on privacy and information protection, have laws. But we all, as we go, volunteer our information. I think it was Carnegie Mellon University some long time ago did some research and found that older people were volunteering more information on the internet than younger people. And we sit there worrying about our kids volunteering too much information.
Yes, definitely. My last question for today, Dr. Amer, is the transformation into the next phase of technology will consume more resources in terms of plastic, fuel, silicon chips, and so on for the robotics industry and so on. Wouldn't this affect our ecosystem our pollution, our environment and everything else. And also at the same time, this industry moving towards the human interaction professions like doctors. Will you be comfortable, Dr. Amer, in the future to have a robot do an open heart surgery on you?
The first question on the
Yes.
environmental impact. I mean, we talked about the socioeconomic impact,
Yes.
how society behavior changes. And we have experienced huge socioeconomic transformation throughout the first, second, and third industrial revolutions.
Yes.
We moved from rural communities to the big cities, from group communities to individualists with the yuppies and the dinks, which is dual income, no kids.
Yes.
So it's a double individualism, and the yuppie is a single individual. And we've changed. And then the economics we have covered, the jobs we have covered, and now we talk about the environmental impact.
Yes.
When it comes to environment, any industrial revolution will have an impact. But what you have to look at is the holistic impact. For example, when you are going green for energy,
Yes.
you are consuming a lot of materials that are either synthetic materials that come from petrochemical or plastic,
Yes.
and natural resources that come from Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And including, for example, let's say if you want to create batteries, you're going to consume a lot of graphite that turns
Carbon,
into
coal.
graphene,
Yeah.
and then and all of that, when calculated singly, you can say we are consuming all these natural resources. But the holistic impact on the environment is a greener environment because you're not using fossil fuel anymore. And you're not transporting energy. You can generate energy on your roof in your village somewhere else. Transport of energy costs a lot of money,
Yes.
impacts the environment, all those wire lines, all those transmission lines,
Yes.
and all that transport. For example, when we move into an element, the fourth industrial revolution is not only about AI and robotics, it's about many other things, including 3D printing. 3D printing will save you all that carbon print
Yes.
that is created through transporting goods that are manufactured elsewhere. So the creative part will be there. Somebody will design sports shoes for you.
Yes.
So the creative part is there, but it could be printed next to your house in the nearest possible 3D printing machine. The impediment to that right now is the slow pace in change in material science.
No.
We have not yet created materials in a form that can be used in manufacturing through 3D printing without having to use a composite materials or a number of composite materials. What if we can create one material that will have different shapes and forms and patterns within the same product? We are not there yet. That's going to take a long time. The overall impact, holistically, is going to be positive in my opinion. But then again,
Inshallah.
I'm a technologist, so
Yeah.
I am biased.
Yes, yes. What about the open heart surgery?
I would trust it because I would know that the AI system and the learning engine that is going to operate this machine has benefited from not only the best surgeon in the world, has benefited from the collective knowledge of all the surgeons who were contributing to the knowledge base, plus the learning from all the patients that have done it before me. So I'll be in safe robotic hands.
Inshallah, inshallah. Thank you very much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Amer bin Amer Al Rawas, for this fruitful discussion, and hope to see you next time, inshallah.
Thank you very much. I
Take care of
enjoyed
yourself.
it thoroughly. Thank you.
Jazakumullah
Thank you,
khair.
Sheikh Hatim.
Dear brothers and sisters, thank you very much for watching and listening to Dome Podcast. See you next time, inshallah, from me, Hatim Al Abdissalaam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum.